I couldn't have a better introduction than the one from Michael. He ended actually his presentation with saying that he's the intermediate person between the designers, the architects, the creative people, and on the other hand, people that do the printing, the people that know, as he mentioned, resolution issues and bring it together. And I've been working on the printed interior decoration industry, looking and exploring actually not what the creative people do, but how can we bring together experience from printer side with the construction side, and that we watch out that we don't misuse certain functionalities from the printing world. And during my presentation, actually, I will talk about from flooring to wall coverings to all the different parts that you can use during an interior decoration. And you will see this morning we saw a lot of nice textiles. I think textile is one of these areas which has been best developed within the printing, digital printing world, actually, in general. There also, they use a lot of regulations, here in Europe, Ecotex regulations and so on. So I don't have many worries in that area. But if we go a little bit further in wallpaper and so on, I know that a lot of these suppliers of wallpaper for digital printing do their utmost best to bring the best materials which apply to all regulations and so on. But then it's up to the printer to do the final right printing. So let's look a little bit further. I like to talk about building the bridges. Yeah, you go from one island to another, and you have to cross a bridge. And I compared it with, at this moment, two different bridges. One, typically the printer who prints for a customer, and on the other hand, an architect who works with the construction world. But actually, we need a special bridge that comes together and connects with a, let's say, a superhighway in different directions, the two islands. And I use this based on a triangle. You have on either side the printer, on the other side a customer, and then the construction world. And actually in the middle there's very often the creative group, yeah, an architect, a designer, and so on. And as we saw, he was showing a lot of restaurant projects, hotels, and so on. There you start using other materials in smaller rooms, and very often then we have to think about, if you print something for wall covering, can you use traditional solvents, UV, inks, and so on? Might it be possible? Probably yes, but I think there will be some smell afterwards. As he mentioned, the smell from fish, there might be some ink smell. Looking a little bit deeper, so there are certain regulations within the construction world which have to be still used within the printing concepts, printing materials that are equal to the standard materials. If you look to standard wallpaper, for example, it's compliant with a number of regulations, definitely in Europe and the rest of the world. But also, if you look to tiles for durability and so on, all these things, of course, you want to be at the right level. Who wants to have a flooring that disappears after a couple of years? Who wants to have, let's say, a sofa who changes colors after 3 years in sunlight? So it's very important to know more about regulations and requirements. What I also noticed is the different languages, and I'm not talking about languages like English, German, or whatever, but the language which is used in a certain environment. I was working together with someone who was doing printed panels for the furniture industry, and he printed a lot of panels in the beginning, and when he brought it to the, let's say, the person who is finalizing the wood with engraving and drilling holes, he was asking, can you provide me the DXF file where to put the holes and to cut off certain corners and so on? And these people said, what's a DXF file? Where do I get it? My RIP doesn't know it. So it's a little bit understanding each other, what's needed and why it's needed. Just like a printer, we heard it before, he knows if he has to print, let's say, 20, 30, 50 square meters images, you don't come with a file of 1 megabyte. You need a decent file, and the file can go up nowadays to a gigabyte even, because he says, you want a nice image, 720 dpi, good colors. So all these things for me are speaking about the same language, easier exchange of information. So I don't want to scare any of the designers or architects here. It's understanding each other, being open to each other. What I also noticed is, and you see that I used a little bit arrows to indicate, if you work with an architect, he's really a concept builder of, let's say, building a volume. And he's always using certain design programs and so on. He's a little bit further away from what the printers do, yeah? If you talk to him about a printer, they very often think about a plotter and a printer for small, let's say, visuals. But if you go then to a step lower, like designers and shop fitters and so on, they are much closer. They have this experience and they are more open to work together. So you have to see also which group of people are talking to each other. An architect to a printer, or a designer to a printer. The distance of understanding might be bigger. There might be a bigger gap than you might feel or see. So it's also important to help them to overcome this threshold of understanding. Now, I was mentioning a number of regulations, especially in the glass world, for example. I also have seen that if you do something with glass and it's about doors or panels, you have to watch out that you definitely go for safety glass, tempered glass. And also, what I noticed when I was involved in a project for, I believe it was for a kind of healthcare environment, and they wanted to use glass panels and glass doors. And the printer who was involved, he was always saying yes. Can you install it? Yes. Can you do it? Yes. Until the moment was there to install it, and they asked, yeah, can you hang the doors, the glass doors? Maybe. How do I fit the panels as walls? So everyone has his own expertise. I said immediately to him, you should have involved a glass fitter. He knows his work about how to make the glass fit perfectly as a wall, as a door, how to have hinges to a glass door, and so on. The printer should do his perfect job as a printer, and a glass fitter for fitting the glass. And I can tell you the margin on glass doors, walls are so big that there's enough room to make a profit. Coming back to a little bit on the issue of wallpaper, for example, I'm not going to mention everything, and it's also sometimes for textiles. You have flame retarded products, of course. You have different regulations depending on the country or on the continent. And for wallpapers, like here in Germany, you have the AGGB or the U. And these are very important because, as I mentioned before, the materials are completely correctly developed. If I walk around and I see suppliers of digital wallpaper, they do really their utmost best. But then it's, of course, if you use the wrong inks, if it's not aqueous-based or latex-based, then you destroy the value of your original print product. So it's very important to know what you are combining. And of course, there has been within the printing industry already a long fight against solvents, VOCs and so on. So I think also in the printed interior decoration, definitely no solvents. If you use UV inks, you definitely have to do good protective coating on as a final finishing layer. There are many solutions, but I always advise printers to get advice how to overcome these issues. I mentioned about rub fasteners, mechanical resistance for flooring, chemical resistance are sometimes very important. Let's say if you develop tabletops or something, or kitchen desks, you always have to think about what kind of environment is it used and how can I overcome and find a good solution. But actually I want to give you an idea and to think about it. Today you hear a lot about murals, and especially in baby rooms, they want to make it very nice, very pretty. And I took like that. If you buy a Mickey Mouse mural and you stick it there and you bought it online, maybe from a less known online web shop, and then you find out it's printed in China, with what kind of products, what kind of inks, it's hard to take then the decision, because if it's printed with the wrong inks, there might be slow release of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and these are the things you definitely don't want to have in a baby room. So I just want to stimulate the people to think more about, and especially the printers that make the products health and safety for any environment. Especially the smaller the room, the more we have to watch out. I would say if it's for stand construction, like here on the show, after 4 days, 5 days, it's gone. It's in quite big and open rooms. That's less an issue. But it's if in your own house, in a hotel room, watch out. If it's in a bar, if it's in a restaurant, you don't want to have the first couple of months a strange smell in your restaurant or in your hotel room. So please keep in mind that we have to set the good example for the future for this new, nice, creative industry. Now, one thing I think it's even more important for the designer side is copyright. Today, in the open digital world, they work on a nice design. As you saw, they spend hours, they have special cameras, they do all these special things, and someone takes a nice picture today with a smartphone, and he says, I also can use that, and he goes printing it a couple of months later. The point is, today, copyright, let's say license to print, definitely in the online environment, in the digital environment, is a very thin layer. There again, ESMA, FESPA, we all have to work together with the print society to protect designers, to help them to keep making money, because otherwise we might end up again in a situation where the designer says, I'm not doing anything anymore for the digital world. We saw so many nice wallpapers, cloth for bed linen this morning. These people invest a lot of time, money to design it. And of course, if it's not well protected, in production, they might lose a lot of money. So, coming to the end, actually, I want to wrap up with just saying that the printed interior decoration, Printeriors in general, is such a nice, exploring new segment of digital printing. On many materials, many options are possible, but we have to keep in mind health and safety, the copyright, the possibility of working with two totally different areas, creative architects, construction world and the printing world, and building this nice bridge in between, which give both an opportunity to make money, to open the printing world in general. That's why I want to end with this positive note. Thank you.